Welcome everybody, this is Leslie Robert Wolf, and on this video we're going to show you 5 ways to make your business model or startup go viral. Now what I've done is this is a video that I've taken from Jason Calacanis' launch event, and it's where the guest speaker Josh Ellman, who's an investor at Greylock Partners, talks about how to make your business model or startup go viral. But what's nice is everything that he talks about is exactly what Thunder Access News is about. And so actually when we get to that point where we're looking for an A round in funding, I'll be trying to contact him because what we have is perfect for what he talks about in his video. So go ahead and check it out. My name is Leslie Robert Wolf, and enjoy watching the video. Thanks.
Shaman. It's a great welcome to the stage, and it's awesome to follow Glenn Kelman, who's one of the star founders in Redfin, one of the star companies in our Greylock portfolio. So look, what I thought I'd talk about today, we talk about launch scale. It's really like, how do you get something working? How do you get it scaling? This is just, I love to talk about stuff that I'm thinking about and talking about with founders all the time, whether they're the founders of the companies I'm on the board of, or they're founders of other people that I'm kind of just meeting through the process. And I try to turn every meeting we have, not just into a pitch where you're just trying to tell me about your company and I judge whether thumbs up or thumbs down, but really just engaging like, how do we take this idea you have and make it something great, something that would be so great that we would love to be a part of and invest in. And one of the things we talk about all the time is virality. And look, every entrepreneur I meet, wants their startup's product to go viral. It's just like the whole thing is like, how do I, get from one person to love my product so much, they tell more people, and we have this great thing that really starts growing virally, scaling organically. We aren't spending a lot on marketing. We're really just able to kind of get it in lots of people's hands. But I think that virality is one of the most misunderstood concepts out there. Everybody just thinks it's easy to like sprinkle a little bit of fairy dust on it and like make it viral. Like I'm sure you've heard this from your investors. Can't we just make it a little more viral? Add a little invite flow. Can't we just like add something that will, tweet more stuff out to make it go viral? And like, it never works that way. It's not something you can sprinkle on. It has to be really inherent in your product, and you have to really understand virality and why it is that people want to spread your product in order to make it work. So look, not all virality is the same. There's a whole bunch of different types, and kind of through this talk, I'm going to go through some of the types of virality. But there's one fundamental thing that I think is really important to understand. Every time you really want something to, quote, go viral, what you're really looking for is what I call inception. It's this idea that somebody takes a cool idea, hey, there's this neat new product, or you heard about it somewhere, you got invited to it, and it incepts in your mind, oh, there's this product that now does this thing. How can I want to go and try it. And then you get kind of virally infected by this idea, you're incepted with it, you go and you try it, then you love it so much that you then spread it to other people too. And so that's kind of the core concept with every single bit of virality, is it all starts with inception. You really want to focus on that moment of inception, what actually your product can do, and get somebody so motivated that they want to try it. Because really we think about like virality is this combination of inception plus giving the, like, I now know that this product exists, for enough motivation that they really want to go give this product a shot. And so that's kind of the overall thing to understand about virality, but not every product is going to go viral in the same way. So I'm going to go through 5 different types of virality that we've sort of organized. Look, the first I call word of mouth virality. And this is really the kind of peak virality that everybody is sort of so great to have happen. When somebody loves your product so much, all they can do is talk about it with others. And you think, oh my gosh, how can I engineer that? Look, the first way to do that is build a great product that is such a good experience and people talk about it. If people remember, and this might be ancient history to some of you in the internet, but back in the late 90s, our search engines were Yahoo and Alta Vista and InfoSeek and Go.com, and you can't even remember all these. And anytime you'd be like searching, you couldn't find something on the internet, in like early 2000s, somebody might come up to you and be like, oh, have you heard of this thing called Google? It's like so much better. And you'd be like, oh, a better search engine. That's great inception. And you'd like, I want to try that. And you'd go to Google, there'd just be a clean text box. You type something in, you get better results. Like that was this amazing word of mouth virality. And Google just engineered that by having a simple product, easy to do. Also, this is how I found out about Evernote, and I'm not sure about the rest of you, but I used to kind of take a bunch of notes on my phone, and then I would like have notes on my computer, and I could never get them synced. And I would just, people would be like, oh my God, have you heard of this thing called Evernote? My life is so much easier because I just take some notes, and they show up on my computer. They're all synced in the same place. And so These are both just great products, but they were also really easy to communicate and really clear to talk about. And so a couple of the keys, there are things you can do, like make your product easy to remember and spell. I don't know how many times you've heard of the name of a product that's really hard to remember and you can't spell it. Remember, it was like Flickr. It's like Flickr, but remove the E, and you kind of had to remember that when you went back to do it. Google's funny because the default spelling for Google, most people would think of it as Google, and I read somewhere once that they kind of picked that spelling because they thought it was actually easier to spell than the actual number that nobody ever spelled right. And this, and another way that I think about it a lot is App Store search. So if you give somebody the name of your product, then you can go into the App Store and you start kind of typing ahead. And if you call your app Instagramming, Instagram evenings, people are going to type in Instagram and your thing is going to come up way low in the search results, and it's really hard to remember and hard to find, even if it is spreading through word of mouth. So I do the kind of App Store type ahead. I just did this morning with a friend. We were thinking about new names for his company, and we were typing in a bunch of names in the App Store to see what the type aheads were like and where they could have something unique. So you really want to make it easy to remember, spell, and sort of find both in app stores and through the web. And the second thing is you want your product to be really easy to describe to others. Again, come back to that point of inception. Google, just a better, clean search engine. Evernote, a really easy way to take notes on your phone. Those are both easy to spell, easy to remember. And Airbnb, which was originally called Air Bed and Breakfast, that's again, might be long, but it's actually pretty easy to remember. And they have a great phrase, book rooms with locals rather than hotels. And the moment that you read that phrase on their website, we forget that a lot of marketing is done to existing users to help them talk about it to other people. The moment that you use a slogan like that, anytime that somebody's talking about Airbnb, they will talk about kind of booking with locals, better than hotels, and they'll use those things to both kind of incept the idea and motivate you. So it's not that hard to actually make your product easier to spread via word of mouth or harder, but it does take having a great product. Then the second form of virality that I like to think about a lot is actually now can you incentivize word of mouth? Can you get people to spread your product because it actually makes their lives more valuable? And I like to think of this a lot as free money, but we see this a lot in products and it actually does really well. With PayPal, if you remember, they had a thing where, hey, get your friends to open an account and we'll put $10 in their account and $10 in yours. So of course, what's the first thing you do is you're going to tell all your friends, please go open PayPal accounts. And if they get funded, you start accruing all this money in your account. Or Dropbox, where you would basically say, hey, please sign up for Dropbox and I'll get more gigs in my Dropbox and you'll get more gigs too. And gigs were such a part of the kind of economy of the early days of Dropbox because you had to pay for them. Or Airbnb does this with credits. And it's a really big channel for Airbnb because they say, hey, invite your friends to Airbnb, and if they book a room, you'll both end up getting a credit. So there's a lot of ways to use this. It really does help, though, when your product kind of has a fundamental value. But you really want to think about these kind of in two fundamental ways. One is the give and get. When you're trying to do this incentivized word of mouth, you really want to make it not just that I'm hey, here's a discount for you, but if it actually gives the original sender a little bit of a discount too, they're much more incentivized to do it. And look, the benefit in all of these cases is these incentives should get you to use the product more. It's not, hey, sign up and we'll send you a free t-shirt, because a free t-shirt isn't really something that's going to make you use the product more. But if you send somebody Uber and you give them a $10 credit on Uber and you get a $10 credit yourself, what's the next thing you're going to do? You're going to take more Uber rides and you're going to spend through that $10 pretty quickly and keep on spending. Or in the case of Dropbox, you got more space. Now you're going to put even more stuff in your Dropbox that you're going to keep on filling it up. So you really want to find incentives that very, very deeply align your product. If you're a free product like a Facebook or an Instagram or something else, it's very hard to do incentivized word of mouth virality because that can cost you a heck of a lot of money quickly. But when you're a transaction-based product, it's okay to use it as long as the incentives get people hooked and kind of create this lifelong habit. But as I said, I already mentioned the t-shirt example, but it's very careful not to get the wrong incentives. When you go to the bank and they send you home with a little stuffed animal, that is not a great incentive that's tied to you really using the bank, although maybe it helps your brand affinity with the bank a little bit. But if they were hey, invite 10 of your friends for bank accounts and you'll get a free stuffed animal, that wouldn't be useful at all. So just really be careful with your incentives that they tie right back to the product. The third type, and this is one that I think is one of the most powerful forms of virality, in which I think gets pretty misunderstood, and isn't kind of capitalized as much as it could be, is what I call demonstration virality. And this is really this core model that when you're using your product and other people kind of, you're sharing things, you're doing things in life, other people see you using that product, the first question they ask is, how did you do that? How did you make that beautiful photo? Or how did you get a car to show up for you on demand? Which, like, it's hard to remember, like 5 or 6 years ago, it was like impossible to get a cab in San Francisco, but your friend would walk out of their party with this cool new app and they'd be like, push a button and somebody would drive up to take them away and you're like sitting there, how do I get a cab? Or I gotta go walk back to my car. So it's really powerful if you can kind of figure out how this demonstration virality can really feed into your product. And so, there's a whole bunch of products that this applies to really well. Obviously, I mentioned the Uber example. One that I'm an investor in called Musical.ly. How many of you guys know what Musical.ly is out there? Yes, that's a few of you. If you were 15 years old, like the numbers would be much, much higher in the room. Musical.ly is this product on your phone where you can create a little music video. You can open it up, you can record a video, you can choose whatever song you want attached to it. It's all fully licensed. And you create a little music video, and people were creating these. And I invested about a year and a half ago. People were creating these and putting them on Instagram. And they'd be like, and what you would see in the Instagram comments was like, how'd you create that cool video? Where'd you get that song? How'd you make that happen? And people are like, oh, this new app Musical.ly. And influencers who wanted to figure out how to look cool and do new things, who had like big followings on Instagram, would do the same thing. And then you'd see these comments and they'd be like, oh, you made it with Musical.ly. And even better, if you look up here at the graphic, you'll see the little made with Musical.ly in the bottom right corner. And it was amazing how well that spread and got picked up, where a lot of people would see these coming through on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and they'd be like, oh, how'd you do that? I want to go do that too. They would go download Musical.ly, make their own music videos, and then that ended up catching people into this network where they were exploring all the great content that was just made within Musical.ly. Instagram obviously followed the same scheme a few years earlier than that, when in order to get photos from your phone out to Twitter and Facebook, you would take pictures, put them through this beautiful filter that would make them square and look much, more updated than they would if they were just straight off your camera. And then you'd be posting them out to Facebook and Twitter, and they'd be like, how'd you get that photo? Yeah, I use this new thing called Instagram. And we think of these things now, Musical.ly and Instagram and Uber, as like pretty ubiquitous. But at those very early days, getting those loops right of like people were doing things and showing them off, and they were talking about it because you would see other people doing it, were just so fundamentally important to their growth. And you really want to think about how to engineer that. And as I said, get the right logo on your product. So you really want to make it like super easy. If your app is a creation product of any kind, or people are creating things, you want to make it really easy for them to share the kinds of things they're creating. I have an image up here of the app called Prisma. Who here has tried Prisma? That's like quite a bit of you, because this summer, like I was seeing these just amazing photos come across Facebook and Twitter and Instagram that were polished and they looked like a painting over somebody's photo. And it was because this little app called Prisma that was letting people do this for the first time, apply all these new neural network algorithms on artwork to do it. And they put this tiny little logo with the word Prisma on the bottom right, and everybody saw it. Now, you might think this only applies for creation apps, but most of the products that we use have us doing some sort of task that we're accomplishing. And so anytime the person's kind of finished accomplishing the task, if you have any way to help them frame that up, that they're sharing it with somebody else, even privately, you really want to help them share it in a way that represents the brand or the company that you did. And at the end of the day, most of the products that are in this world of expression, or even something like Uber, like we kind of try to help make people feel like stars, or feel like a little bit better than they were doing kind of otherwise without the new tool or product. And you always want to kind of create that how'd you do that reaction within your product. So think of those moments in your product where you can actually celebrate that. Now you can't be fake. You can't be like, hey, you just got a great gold star badge. Let's go share that off onto Twitter or Facebook, because no one really shares off their little badges or awards that they got. But they will share just naturally things they're doing that make them look good. One funny one I remember was the app called Mailbox that was all about getting you to zero inbox. They had people kind of celebrate whenever they got to zero inbox, and they would sort of share it out there. And it did a great job of spreading Mailbox, at least in the very early days. Although I always found when anybody shared they were at zero inbox, I'd immediately send them an email. So look, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of infectious virality, which is, I think, what most people commonly think of when they hear the word virality. This is invite flows. This is, hey, will you please come and join this product with me? And if you think about it, this works really well in some cases where it's better to have people more people using the product because it makes it better for both of you. Please come join my network. Please come add me on this product. Invite friends. But it's not something that works in all products. Like, again, getting invited to Uber just isn't something that's that relevant. Getting invited to a new communication tool, like a product called House Party, which was formerly Meerkat, which I'm on the board of, and we've pivoted the company to be House Party, is very powerful because House Party is a way to jump into a group chat with a bunch of your friends. So people are like, hey, come join me on House Party. That kind of invite works very well through this infectious form. But you really want to think about how do you get the right people in, incepted, motivated to come and join you in this product in a meaningful way. Facebook obviously is famous for having gotten people to invite a lot of their friends through a whole bunch of channels. LinkedIn, I was part of this. We were figuring this out back in 2004 and 2005. How do we get you to upload your Outlook address book with it was a ActiveX extension within Internet Explorer, which shows you how old that was. But we were trying to figure out how to get all your contacts in so we could get you to invite people to your LinkedIn network, because we knew the LinkedIn growth model was, if you come join my network now, someday down the road, we might both be able to help each other get jobs, get business opportunities in the future. And it was amazing how many people we were able to motivate through that. I'm also Greylock's investors in a company called Nextdoor that I'm pretty involved with. And at Nextdoor, we have this funny thing where we're trying to get your neighborhood online and nobody knows their neighbors. And so we're like, hey, go and upload your address book and invite your neighbors. Doesn't really work. So one of the things we found there is using postcards. We're like, hey, do you know who lives at this address? If so, click here to send them a postcard, and we'll actually send a physical postcard out there. Now that costs the company some money because it's not free to send an actual postcard through the mail, but I call it kind of paid virality or paid infectious virality, because we're using the person's intent to really invite somebody else, but we're still sending them a customized postcard. And that works way better than a direct mail or something else normally would for Nextdoor. So look, as you're thinking about infectious virality, look, the fundamental unit of this is an invitation. It always starts with a sender who says, hey, please come join this thing with me. I want you to be here with me. There'll be mutual value if we both are part of this networking system, but it only ever works if you have a natural network effect. And then you do want to figure out now in this age of SMS and iMessage, what can you do to make the invitation kind of as catchy and as direct and as possible? At LinkedIn, we found that if we left the invite text blank, it actually performed worse than if we filled in some default text. We thought, oh, people will write their own thing that'll perform better. But most people don't really know what to say in the invitation. But getting the wording is really, really important when you're doing infectious virality. One of the things we found, this is again, 12-year-old research, so it might have changed since then. But at LinkedIn, we would say, please come join my network on LinkedIn, and it'll make both of our networks bigger. And just by implying that sentence, it'll make both of our networks bigger. The people who received it would be more likely to invite other people when they came out, because they were, again, incepted with this idea of bigger networks. So there's a lot you can do to make this kind of virality work, but it really only works if your product has a network effect. If you don't have a good network effect, inviting somebody else to come join you on the system doesn't really have merit. And I've seen so many products that are like, please come add me here, that just feels like spam. The very last type of virality I like to talk about is what I call outbreak virality. And this is really kind of hard to engineer, but when it happens, it's pretty darn magical. And you see, I wrote Gotta Catch 'Em All, but this is this kind of moment in time where you can kind of manufacture, where you get lots and lots of people talking about a product at once, and then they'll all kind of download it and use it together. Pokemon Go is a great example. Flappy Bird is one. I see the hype that Snapchat is doing with its Spectacles product. I think that's a pretty good example of at least trying to create this, although they don't have enough supply, so it's not clear that they're actually going to get the outbreak, but they certainly have that kind of hype and attention. But it doesn't happen that often. But when you can manufacture it, it's really exciting. And it really comes from this combination of like, how do you get this sort of really fun thing that people want to do and want to feel cool and want to feel in the know of, and kind of have them demonstrating it to other people and have a whole bunch of people do it at once. Look, the downside to the kind of outbreak virality is it often goes away as fast as it comes. So, celebrate the moment and be there. But like Pokemon Go is still doing fine, even though it might not be as much a phenomenon as it once was, because it really had this moment in time where it was able to do it. So look, not all virality is the same. You really want to figure out how to apply it to your own product and figure out what really natively fits into your product's flows. If you're creating good content, help people demonstrate that to other people. If you think that your product's not spreading because it's hard to spell or hard to describe, figure out how to help people describe it and maybe find a name that's easier to spell. At the end of the day, kind of incentivize word of mouth works really well if you have a product that's making money. The demonstration virality, it works when you have some experience that you can do in the presence of other people or be sharing out with other people. Infectious works when you have a network effect. And the key thing that I always like to hammer home is like the inception and the motivation are one part of it to get someone to show up. But if they show up and then the product is hard to figure out, doesn't onboard them well, doesn't guide them into the product, you're kind of screwed. You've done all this work to create virality, to create this moment where somebody's willing to try out your product. This is your chance to teach them what the product does, to guide them through a flow where they can actually figure out what's going on. Musical.ly is one of a pretty interesting example. We actually just posted a video. It's on my Medium page today with the founder of Musical.ly, who talks a lot about the origination of Musical.ly. But when you go and download the product, it kind of tries to teach you what it does. It shows you a bunch of great content, and then it pretty quickly does a lot of things to try to encourage you to create your own content in Musical.ly. And it really kind of pulls you through learning what Musical.ly does and is all about. And again, if you're 15, it probably hooks you really quickly with a whole bunch of stars and things that you know. And if you're my age, maybe you feel a little bit creepy sometimes when you're on the product. But it's an amazing product, and it's really fun. So look, we've all seen this. You have these viral products that like don't tell you what's going on, gets you to spam all your friends, and then you pretty much give up the product. Like, don't do that. Like, make the whole chain really tight. Because if you do, you might create a real viral loop that actually keeps something going that can get as big as an Uber, an Airbnb, a Redfin, LinkedIn, or a Facebook. So, like, at the end of the day, like, the key to all virality is make sure you're getting the right people who want to use your product for all the right reasons, and then they take the right actions that keep them coming back over and over and over. So if you take anything from the whole launch scale thing today, like the only metric that matters on your product is how many people are actually using it, but there's a whole bunch of ways to get people to try it in the first place. So thank you very much.